before I talk about space security challenges, I just want to talk a little bit about space importance. I think it's becoming very obvious for global and national and regional reasons how important space services, applications, and science is, all the way from providing communication services that is used by to have great national communications as well as broadcasting services. But also applications that we are using for better managing our national resources, using Earth observation services and applications, things that we use for weather, applications and services, things that we use for monitoring our climate, monitoring our natural resources, water, as well as for security purposes. On the other side, also space has been continuously providing very important and critical services when it comes to transportation, with providing navigation services that are becoming more sophisticated with time and satisfying the need. So it's very obvious how important space has been providing different services. In addition, also from social perspective, it's been a source for innovation, source for creating some sort of a culture of innovation and pride among the youngsters, and that they can actually pursue some challenges. So these are very critical and important services and values that space is providing to us. On the other side, the last 10 years, the last decade, space industry has witnessed very interesting trends that they bring opportunities, but at the same time they bring challenges. These trends, things are like, of course, improvement in technologies. Now we have smaller satellites and large number of them with thousands, which is multiplying the number of existing satellites by 1,600% in the next 5 to 7 years. That's a big trend that makes us a little bit think about how we're going to deal with a space environment. On the other side, we have very interesting advancement happening on the launch, all the way from reusable launch to launching from space, and also lighter launch with much more frequency, more payloads, more satellites inside these rockets. So this is actually also bringing a very interesting concept that needs some sort of reflection. We have also a new concept which is called the suborbital flights. These are things that go for space for moments. It could even go for a little bit more than moments, but then eventually it goes back to Earth, and they could also have some human in them. We are expecting to see much more human space flights, but this time not only astronauts, but even tourists, non-professional participants on these space vehicles. So these are some of the interesting trends that are happening, in addition, of course, of new players. I just received, an invitation to give a feedback, or support of developing countries who are going now to join CUPUS. So it's very clear from even from developing countries there is a big interest into space, and of course realizing the more access to space technology that is happening, as well as the space applications that they can be utilized for various purposes, how new actors from government perspective, but also from commercial perspective, are becoming much more interested in space science applications and technologies. Now, on the other side of all these changes that are happening on the past decade, especially in the last 5 years, you can see them exponentially happening. There is also some sort of concerns. This comes in terms of, unfortunately, there are congestions happening in space. If we are going to see, today, for example, we're talking about 1,500 active satellites, at least commercial ones, or civilian ones, 1,500. This number is going to be 16,000 in 5-7 years. So that is bringing a really big challenge in terms of congestions on the orbital locations, and how we're gonna also run the traffic management of these satellites in space. Debris is definitely something that is increasing for two reasons, of course. Accidents that could happen, but also some of these satellites could still remain in orbits for a longer time. A number of them are nano-satellites that universities are launching, and maybe non-professional satellites operator are sending them without much control on their falling back to Earth and re-entries. So also the time of these suborbital flights going to airspace from one point to another point and then going to space and then going back. So these are bringing challenges related to traffic management in space. Things related also to debris management, which is going to happen. It's something. How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to educate these new actors and make sure that they do things responsibly? Now, this requires measures. I mean, also in addition to of course, the basic thing, which is frequency, that is becoming very limited due to terrestrial services, but also aeronautical and space services that are increasing dramatically. I mean, exponentially in the next. Let me say, in the past 5 years, but also in the next 5 years. Cybersecurity is another challenge that is happening. I mean, everything's basically being digitized, and of course, this is also adding to the formula of the challenges that space industry is going to face. And has been facing, but is going to face more in the next years. Now, this requires measures at both national and international or multinational level. At the multinational, I think there has been some efforts like what we've had today in this conference, space security conference, that basically people exchange views about these challenges and what would be the next steps and what could be done, and also looking at some of the countries that has taken some initiatives in this regard. In Kupus, there has been good discussions under what we call the Working Group for Long-Term Sustainability Activities. Number of guidelines, although it's a soft law, although it's voluntary, but it still provides good guidance or good reference for actors who are willing to take some measures, and it's a good reference to start, their let me say, measures at a national level. On the other side, at a national level, countries, of course, need to interpret some of these guidelines, need to interpret what is mentioned on the space treaties into an actual practice. In the UAE, we have actually taken a number of measures in this regard. From policy perspective, when we developed our national space policy, we actually were contributing at the same time to what's happening on the legal, actually onto the long-term sustainability working group. And we think we've done a good job in mapping our national policy, our national space policy, to what guidelines were actually requested by this document. Also, at our law, we talk about debris. Also, in our regulatory framework, we do take into account the different aspects that relate to making the space environment much more sustainable, much more stable. On the other side, at the operator side, our operators, which we're very proud of, has been taken already measures from technical perspective to make sure that they actually contribute to solving this problem rather than actually being part of that problem. Now, of course, there is large room for improvement at internationally as well as at a national level, and we hope that such discussions provide more insights of what can be done, and the UAE will basically keep no effort, and we're very interested to be part of solving such a global issue, and we are ready to collaborate and partner.